Trick or treat.
I already told you to just grab some candy if you want one, Corey. Why do you keep jumping out the window and disguising yourself unconvincingly as different small children?
What are you talking about? I'm a little boy. I'm just very tall.
That negates the term little,
Maddy, who are you talking to?
Wait, where'd you go?
Stop being weird. We need to do the podcast.
Right. Hi, I'm Maddy.
And I'm Corey. And this is the Hallow-Holics Anonymous. A show about all things horror and occasionally Halloween, especially this month. So, before we start, I'm just going to completely derail this already and talk about the fact that there is a creepy Satanist Sabrina the Teenage Witch coming to Netflix, and I'm so excited for it.
Well, does it still have Melissa Joan Hart?
They'll probably do a cameo because that's how this stuff rolls, but I don't know. We'll see.
Not really interested unless she is Sabrina.
No, she's not.
Then I'm going to be radically disappointed.
Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Apparently this was originally supposed to be a CW thing that was going to cross over with Riverdale, but CW didn't end up taking it and Netflix did. I'm still hoping for a crossover because some cool stuff happens when Riverdale and Sabrina cross over.
Well, yeah, and
she
Sabrina's
lives
from
in the next town.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so excited for not only this, but the potential weirdness that could come from this.
Well, I've already told you my opinion about the corruption of the Archies, and I don't like it. I haven't watched it, and I know I don't like it.
It's not a corruption. It's a different time. And it's really good. No, that's not the right term. It's really fun.
Does Jughead even have a crown?
Yeah. He's got this sort of, like, beanie with, like, the crown part sticking off. It actually works better than you'd think.
It doesn't work as well as the paper crown. Does he eat a lot?
I mean, he doesn't talk about hamburgers constantly. It's sort of a joke here and there, but, like, he does eat a lot.
Does Archie date Betty and Veronica and occasionally Cheryl?
He dated Mrs. Grundy.
Oh, my gosh. Is Mrs. Grundy attractive?
Yeah, well, I mean, she's dead now, but yeah.
Is Mr. Weatherby ugly and fat? He'd better be ugly, fat, and bald with an unconvincing toupee that looks like two pieces of hair stuck together.
I actually can't remember if they've introduced him yet or not.
You see, this is exactly why it just doesn't work for me.
I don't know. I really think you would like it if you could just get past your weird old-fashionedness.
Welcome to the Riverdale Podcast, a podcast dedicated to all things Archie.
And occasionally Sabrina. But no, that's related. I just wanted to make sure that our listeners knew.
I feel like at this point, it's like we pulled out a tub of ice cream from the very back of the fridge that has ice, like, freeze all over the top. You know, it's the old ice cream, and it's like, it's not as good as it used to be, but you really want some damn ice cream. That's what Halloween 5 and especially Halloween 6 feel like.
Oh, this is another one of those destruction of my childhood memories situations. I thought 5 was actually okay.
Okay is the exact definition of 5.
5 and 6 actually would have been an excellent movie if they weren't Halloween movies. Same with just like Halloween 3. If these weren't Halloween movies, this was like some standalone thing about some little girl and a slasher, it would have been great. But it only would have been great if it still had Danielle Harris. That girl carried 4 and especially 5. And that's why we'll get to it when we talk about my movie 6. It's tragic what they did to that girl before they started filming 6, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, you're totally right. This is one of those things where, like, 4-day-old pizza, you're like, oh, I shouldn't eat this, but I'm hungover. It's Sunday, and I don't want to go anywhere. This has been on my floor for 4 days, but now I'm vomiting.
Yeah, that pretty much exactly describes Halloween 5 and especially 6.
I remember loving 6 when I was a kid, and there is still a lot about 6 that I love, and it's not going to be reflected in my write-up at all.
At this point, comparing all three, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween went downhill the fastest and the most out of all three of them. And yet it started at the height. It started better than all three of them.
Agreed. And I also think that it hasn't really, and maybe on the 19th it will, and I really hope the 19th fixes everything.
Well, it's going to completely ignore the fact that part 6 especially didn't happen, so I'm happy.
You're really mad about 6. Oh. Paul Rudd's in that, you know.
Yes, and he does a bang-up job.
He's great in that. And again, there's a few moments that I want to talk about him later too. But like, I'm really hoping for a Nightmare on Elm Street thing here. Like Nightmare on Elm Street completely disregarded every film in the franchise when they did The Final Nightmare. And The Final Nightmare was so good, and it was such a celebration of the genre. And Wes Craven just erased his other movies just to get this one made, and I love it.
He was so great in The Final Nightmare. He was the wisdom character. He was the mentor. He was that part of the heroic cycle that guides the character onto her journey. He was just fantastic.
Yeah, that movie's so good. I need to watch that again. It's the only one when I bought, after we watched all the Friday the 13th last Halloween with the Horror Discord, I bought all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, and I got through all of them, except for some reason I ran out of time or inclination to finish the last one, which is unfortunate because it's one of my favorites.
I powered through a marathon with them with my mom like last year, and afterwards she was very upset at me. She was like, "You led me to believe that all of them were better than they really were," because she'd forgotten how bad some of them were.
If I had to pick movies in that franchise to keep, it would be the first one. Wait, did we talk about this last week?
I'm not sure we talked a little about Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay. Well, it would be the first one, it would be Dream Warriors, and it would be Final Friday. Or no. New Nightmare, sorry.
You see, I would also include part 4 in that because I love Rennie Harlan, but
I need to go back and watch 4. I thought 4 was really strange because they went back to the town and it was all Twin Peaksy.
That's part 6.
Oh, that's 6. Which one's 4?
4 is...
4 is the continuation of 3, which sounds dumb after I just say it. But it's the one where the same characters continue on.
4 is really great if you've just watched part 3. I'm just saying they have to be watched together. It makes 4 that much more epic. And it's this character who fights the monster in the only way that one truly can. She's the only character who lived in her dreams. Of course she could take on Freddy.
Oh, right. That's the one where she, dresses up in everybody's stuff.
Yes, she, takes on their powers and their personalities, and she discovers herself as she loses her friends and starts removing their pictures from the mirror. And then she does this awesome 80s fighting montage.
Yeah.
Clearly with a man dressed as her doing the karate nunchucks with a bad wig, but it's just great. It's so good.
Okay, yeah. That was dope. I think we should save that for another episode, but you're right. That was dope. All right.
Next year, Nightmare on Elm Street Marathon, guys. Wait for it.
Should we do that on, Arbor Day since it's Elm Street? When is Arbor Day? What am I even talking about? Let's just keep going.
April 26th will be our Nightmare on Elm Street, the first of our 4 megasodes. All right.
So what else do we do? Do we need to do a story so far thing or?
No, because right now we have a lot of guests waiting in the living room, and we've got to finish up the final portion of my 27-part fan fiction.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, so do you want to pick up where we left off?
Yeah, as long as you think everybody else is going to be okay with it. I mean, we haven't gotten... I mean, Jim's quiet. That's all that really matters to me.
Mm-hmm. He's really quiet, actually. All right, guys.
I'm really enjoying this.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Y'all ready for the for the fan fiction?
I am. So am I.
I can take it or leave it.
I would absolutely love to hear what you've been writing lately, Maddy. It's been quite impressive. I give it an A+.
John McClane had put up with a lot of bullshit in the last few years, but this crap from Loomis really took the cow pie cake. There was no mistaking the secretive glint in that old man's eyes as they edged closer to each other in the dark, waiting for Michael to make his appearance in the boiler room below.
He's evil, Mr. McLean. Pure, unadulterated evil.
Loomis whispered, the burn scar on his face seeming to crinkle as he spoke. Funny, McLean kinda liked that scar. Yeah? McLean grumbled, glancing down below and hefting up his gun with a suggestively firm grip. What kind of odds am I getting?
Ha ha ha, you don't want to know. I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding in even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face. And do you work out, John?
McLean gripped his gun even tighter, pressing it.
Oh, come on, guys. Are you serious?
Oh my God. Again, Satan?
I'm sorry. I can't stand by and listen to you screw up these franchises in the way you're screwing them up. First of all, John is what? Maybe 29, 30 in this. This is young John McClane. It has to be, because old John McClane sucks and is like slightly racist, and nobody wants to read about that. Loomis at this point is like 497 years old. So there's no way this relationship would work.
Well, no. Remember how I specified back in Chapter 4 that this was actually when Loomis was younger?
So this is before Michael actually started the killing?
No, Chapter 17, he traveled back in time.
Then he's old if he traveled back in time. It's old Loomis traveling back in time to young John McClane.
No, he took the TARDIS.
Yeah, I understand how time travel works. But what I'm saying is, young Loomis, to travel back in time, would not have had all the understanding of Michael he has as old Loomis. So what would have to happen in this story for it to make any sense whatsoever would be for young Loomis to travel forward in time to meet old Loomis, discuss Michael, then have young Loomis somehow believe old Loomis, because young Loomis was very skeptical at the time. That's why he spent so much time and was so obsessed with this kid, right? So we'd have to get all this information. We have to assume he'd believe it. Then he'd have to travel back in time to have this work out with John McClane. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a whole chapter missing here, and I just can't let it go, Maddie.
Well, I've got 15 more parts to this, and it all become a lot clearer once you get to, Chapter 37, when Loomis confesses everything to Michael.
There's how many more parts?
Just a couple. Just a couple.
We're not reading those right now, are we? We've got 2 movies to go.
You've been interrupting me all night.
I haven't been. It's been the devil.
That's what you always say.
It's always his fault.
Okay, Satan, do you have anything left to say?
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay, good, because the power of Christ compels you.
Fine. Oh, my eyes! Ow!
Well, now that you've burned one of our only, he's honestly the only dude. Him and the teacher are, the only 2 dudes that we know that don't really creep me out or destroy our stuff. And now you burned him with holy water. I'll talk to him later. I'll smooth this over. Don't worry. While the devil recovers from his crippling burns, I think I should probably talk about my latest horror pack. We get it. You're hurt, dude. Just stand back. All right. So, horror pack this week. It's 50% great, 50% question mark. But the 50% that's great is so great. I'm so excited. All right, so here's the question mark. The first one is a film entitled, and this is a horror pack limited edition. It's called Against the Night. It is an atmospheric horror tale that is set in motion by Hank, a guerrilla filmmaker who is relentless in his drive to capture visceral footage. This is pretentious already.
You say gorilla, and I'm picturing a gorilla filmmaker, and that actually sounds pretty awesome.
True. Late one night, he persuades a group of friends to sneak into an abandoned prison to document any paranormal activities that their night vision cameras can detect. Once inside, a series of inexplicable events. I'm pretty sure they can be explained. It's fucking ghosts. It's ghosts.
An explicable event.
Yes, it is a very explicable event. So they get separated from each other and are pursued by someone who knows the layout far better than they do. Is it one of their own who is hunting them down one by one, or have they inadvertently awoken some ancient evil that has been confined within the prison's massive walls? I would assume if they have to ask that question, it is probably an ancient evil.
All of these found footage movies, and I'm sorry guys for those of you who absolutely love the genre and can't get enough of them, it's clearly a budget grab to just do something as cheap as possible, right? They are basically taking a concept that could have just been teenagers or adults decide to spend the night in somewhere creepy and bad things happen. It doesn't have to be a guy carrying a camera.
No,
you don't need that.
Frank Whaley's in this, though, and I kind of like him. I'm sure it's going to be awful, but we'll see. All right, next up we've got... This is a horror-packed signed film. The unrated version of Bye Bye Man. The Bye Bye Man. Its tagline is, "Don't think it, don't say it." The evil behind the most unspeakable acts. Wait, that... Ugh.
Unspeakable? That's a new one.
The evil behind the most unspeakable acts has a name. Apparently the Bye-Bye Man. From the producer of Oculus and The Strangers, college friends stumble upon horrific origins of the Bye-Bye Man. They discover that there is only one way to avoid his curse. Don't think it, don't say it. But once the Bye-Bye Man gets inside your head, he takes control, making you see and do the most unspeakable acts, committed a lot of unspeakable stuff going on in these two movies. Is there a way to survive his possession? Starring Douglas Smith from Ouija, Carrie-Anne Moss, from The Matrix. See the chilling thriller that critics are calling a paranormal thrill ride that will echo in your nightmares.
To me, this sounds like they took the classic concept of maybe a giallo or a film noir, where an adult, maybe a reporter, maybe a schmuck, maybe just some normal person, investigates something dark and goes deeper down the rabbit hole. But they replace them with a bunch of college kids, most of them probably with fake boobs.
Maybe, but Carrie-Anne Moss is in it.
Yeah, and as every movie she's ever been in, been amazing.
Well, I don't know. I've only seen The Matrix. I don't know. I'll give it a shot. I mean, it's signed. I could care less. John... It looks like John Gould. That's his name.
I don't know. I just kind of like tune out when they in a description says college kids or high school kids. I'm just like,
Yeah. And I'm not really a like signature kind of guy, but I guess that's nice that this dude signed a bunch of Blu-rays.
Oh, what else was he doing?
I don't know, probably making another movie. Filmmakers are a busy people, I think. I don't know. All right, so next, in a limited edition glow-in-the-dark box art, it is The Invisible Man, starring Claude Rains. Oh, I'm so excited.
Nice.
Yeah, I haven't seen this movie in forever.
I love that.
I can't tell. I'm going to shut my light off. It looks like it must be the inside box, because it comes with a dust cover.
Have you put it in front of a lamp first to charge it?
Yes, I know how glow-in-the-dark stuff works, Maddie. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, that doesn't look like it.
Short-tempered as the Invisible Man right now.
Well, something glows in the dark here. So the Invisible Man's the Invisible Man. I'm not going to summarize it for you guys. If you don't know what the Invisible Man is, you should probably not be listening to this podcast.
Underrated, fantastic Universal monster.
Yes. And finally, I am so stoked to own this movie. They sent me A Dark Song. It's the one about the girl whose son or daughter gets killed in some sort of drunk driving accident, some kind of accident, and she hires some dude to do like it seems very much like a goetic summoning ritual. They like hold up in a house they rent and like just do this super long, super detailed. The entire movie is their ritual, and it's so good. The end gets a little bit campy, but the rest of the movie is so good. Like, I will let it. This is easily one of my favorite movies that I've seen in the last year. Like, this is up there with The Void, Resolution, The Boy. Like, this is an excellent movie.
That kind of reminds me of Trilogy of Terror, the one story where the woman tried to bring her son back from the dead.
Oh, yeah. This is very different. This is more atmospheric than anything, and it's more about what's happening rather than, like, the whole supernaturalness of the whole thing. It's really, it's a very interesting movie. It's a very original movie, and I definitely recommend everybody in the world see it. I love it.
It sounds really good.
And there's only 2 cast members. It's just 2 people in this house for pretty much the entire movie.
I kind of love movies like that.
Yeah, me too. All right, so yeah, that was Horror Pack for this month, and I will, of course, be keeping it for another month. They had a little bit of problems because of the hurricane. They sent everything out a little bit late, but they were super cool about it. They sent an email, and they're like, look, we're going to have to send this late. One of our distributors was down on Hurricane Lane, or whatever the sensitive way to say that is. So they're like, we're either going to wait for the movie, which might take too long, or we're going to substitute it. So I think they ended up substituting it and sending it out late. Not that late, only a couple of days. And they offered to move everyone's payment date down a couple of weeks if we needed it to sort of make up for it. And Coffin Box kind of did the same thing. I just got an email from them saying they were going to be a little late with the October box, but they're throwing in a whole bunch of like extra crap. Well, like a couple extra things.
Cool.
So I'm really stoked about how cool these two, well, the same company, but I'm really stoked about how these 2 companies have like handled their shit.
It's a really fun niche market because unlike with a lot of other nerdy subgenres, I feel like horror embraces the bad. Like, really embraces the bad and the good.
Mm-hmm.
So we can never really be 100% disappointed.
Oh, yeah, very true, very true. But, I mean, if they were sending me, like, movies that were the same caliber as, like, I don't know, what some really terrible movie I've gotten from them. I can't think. But if they, well, they haven't sent me Birdemic. But, yeah, if that's all they were, if they were sending me some, like, Factories cast-offs every month, I would have gotten rid of it. But that's definitely not what they're doing. They're definitely trying to mix some quality in with the camp, and I can totally respect that. And it's really, I've watched a lot of movies that I wouldn't have seen otherwise, or at least not seen anytime soon.
With that out of the way, I think it's time for a little bit of...
On this day in horror history.
On September 30th, the Ape, Donovan's Brain, Radar Man from the Moon, Brainstorm, Elvira Mistress of the Dark, Zombie Hunters, and Unleashed Evil were released.
And that was On This Day in Horror History.
Sheriff? They want you down at the cemetery.
Today in the cemetery.
The soundtrack is so good for this one, though. Like, they really let Alan Howarth, like, do whatever he wanted to this, and I think it turned out great.
Oh, yeah.
You've come back to us, Mike.
He's so tired.
Yeah, poor guy.
When are they going to realize that she is not him? She's just a child.
They know that Michael Myers is her uncle, and that she attacked her stepmother. That's why they fear her. Especially on Halloween. You're afraid. You're afraid the whole thing might start to happen again. How many people did he kill last year? Have you forgotten? But you never looked into his face, did you? You never saw his eyes. You never saw that nothing, no expression, blank. My memory goes back 12 years. I pray.
They really renovated the house quick for, well, I guess it's been 10 years, never mind. They sure did renovate that house for part 6.
I knew that hell would not have him. Michael Myers is outside.
The National Guard will take him to a maximum security facility, where he'll stay till the day he dies.
So weird.
Never die.
Okay, if this was just about reviewing the movie trailers, I would say that was the best trailer out of all of them.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Oh, man, that was like, wow. That was almost better than the movie.
I mean, the trailer was definitely cut better than the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I hate 5, or I don't think I dislike 5 as much as you dislike 5. But
oh no,
I mean, 5's not great.
I've got a few things to say at 5. I don't hate 5. So when we last left Jamie, she killed her mom.
Well, quote, killed her mom.
Yeah. When we last left Jamie, she killed her stepmom. In this movie, we decide she was the victim of a psychic link with Michael. Bear with me. And she's an innocent child again. Michael still isn't dead. Loomis is even crazier and more exhausted than the last one. Rinse and repeat. But there's
Wait, hold. I'm sorry. You know her mom didn't die in 4, right?
She did.
She didn't. They mentioned briefly at the beginning that her stepmom and stepdad are on vacation.
I don't remember that, but we'll go. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Rinse and repeat. There is a funny tattoo on Michael's wrist now. What could it mean?
Dun dun dun.
So, first, I actually thought the opening was a little silly, and I was rolling my eyes. But then with commentary on a second viewing, I actually kind of liked it. They had Don Shanks, who played Michael in this one, butcher several dozen pumpkins in the process. He did express it wasn't easy getting pumpkins either, because this was yet another edition of the franchise filmed during the summer and not the fall.
Yeah, I thought I heard that they painted watermelons.
No, he said pumpkins as far as I could recall. He said he was doing it for the longest time, too. Now, the director, Dominique let me try to pronounce this. Dominique Othenin-Girard is sort of an independent filmmaker and artist, but I don't personally feel that it really showed in this movie. That might just be me, but I'm open to other interpretations if anyone has broken down the framing a little bit more than I had the chance to. I mean, what do I know? I think Rennie Harlin is a genius.
There's a documentary on parts 4, 5, and 6, but they really only touch on 4 and 5. And they did talk about him a lot. And they talked about how hard he worked in the beginning. If I unless I'm getting these directors confused, I'm pretty sure it was him. He worked really hard. Like, he came up with storyboards. He had all this stuff, right? For the barn sex scene, he made them come to his hotel in a non-creepy way and sort of run it so he could figure out lighting and all this stuff. And the actors involved in that were really happy he did it that way, because they could focus more on the technical aspects of it rather than the embarrassment of having to film that scene. So it sounds like
that sequence.
Yeah. It sounds like he did. And if you look, a lot of the 5 has the best lighting in all of them. And I think that that's probably this dude's fault. But I think that's about where it ends. I think when filming started, I think that producers getting involved in all that may have made him back away a little bit.
In the commentary, they didn't say anything about him backing away. They had nothing but nice things to say about him, about his vision, about his artistic nature. They gushed and gushed and gushed about this director.
Yeah, and all the actors said the same thing in the documentary I watched too. I just think that they mentioned something about him doing a bunch of work at the beginning but not doing as much, and I'm speculating that's why. Not doing as much during filming.
Well, he was the man who also decided that the original script concept didn't work. And I think he even pulled a Doug Kenny and threw it in the trash. His goal was to go back to Carpenter's Hitchcockian structure. He ended up co-writing the script with Michael Jacobs. The original draft did have Jamie being straight up evil like Michael, but that got panned. Not hard to imagine why. Danielle Harris was adorable, but both Pleasence and Harris would have preferred that idea. Then again, another source I found says Harris didn't think it would make sense. So I'm thinking maybe she would have just had a lot of fun being the Robin to Michael's Batman, but knew it probably didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of people in the documentary I watched that were, maybe not a lot, maybe like 2 people that were upset that they didn't sort of pass the torch on to Jamie. That was sort of the plan for After 4, but they didn't want another Halloween 3 on their hands, I think, so they just kept it to Michael.
Yeah.
Which, it's fine. It's fine.
I feel like at this point it felt like it was running out of steam. They weren't bringing anything really new to the show, and it had the most obnoxious teenagers of all of the movies.
Oh, Tina's awful, and I feel so bad because I'm sure she's such a nice girl in real life, and like everybody involved in this had so much fun making the movie, but poor Tina has gotten so much hate for just being a different type of character. Granted, I didn't like her either, but there's something to be said for taking a chance on a heroine that is completely different than any other heroine that's ever come before her in any movie.
You know, Tina actually didn't bother me, but her boyfriend did.
Oh, that guy sucks. That part where he's like making love to his car with that cloth, I just want to punch him in the neck.
So the car that he was driving in the film was actually purchased from a family who was selling it because their daughter had owned it, and 2 weeks before they sold it, she had committed suicide in the car.
Yeah, and they said that they felt real weird in that car like the whole time before they knew it, too. That's crazy.
It's kind of depressing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not a sociopath, it's kind of depressing.
And
not that I am, I'm kidding.
Have you seen The Dead Zone?
The movie or the show?
The movie.
Well, yes to both anyways. I don't know. That was really pretentious of me to ask. I've also read the book, Maddie.
Yeah, so you remember the bit at the end where that bodyguard's life is destroyed, so he decides to set up these scissors and slowly ease towards them to kill himself?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like famous...
I like death scenes.
scene that shows everything and nothing. Your imagination leads you to the most horrible mental image. But originally my point is that originally they had planned to kill Rachel with scissors through the mouth. And I couldn't help but picture that scene. Or Ellie Cornell did not want to do it, and I can understand why.
Yeah, she fought against that, and it does go against her character. Like, there's no way, like... And it sort of goes against Michael, too. That's an implied sexuality that just isn't something that...
Rachel's not just a body count girl. She's an important character at this point. Her death has to have a meaning to it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they did kind of screw her over in this.
Oh, they did, and I hated that. I really wanted her to stick around, you know?
And there was no reason for it, too. There's no reason you can't, like... Tina didn't need to be the hero in this. Again, I'm sorry I'm talking shit on Tina, because I do like that they took a chance on a character like that in a main role.
She still wasn't entirely the hero, though.
Well, I mean, the closest we got, aside from the little stuttering boy.
That's true. Oh, boy, the little stuttering boy. No. This mask was bad, but Part 6's mask is the worst of them all.
I think Part 6 is the best.
No, the mask had to be altered several times additionally because Shanks broke his nose at one point, but you really loved the mask in Part 6?
Yeah, I think Part 6 is the best mask.
Well, get this. The director actually wanted to make the mask more human, so he gave it more emotion. He had them craft more emotion into the shape to humanize Michael because of what they were going for with this movie.
In 5.
Yes. The opening. Let's talk about the opening. I'm sorry. When Michael is crawling through the well and he's surrounded by fire, I thought this has got to be a Bride of Frankenstein reference, or at the very least, Milo and Otis.
So, did you get this about that guy? Like, I had always thought, up until I watched this documentary, that this dude just nursed Michael back to health for a year. But apparently this was supposed to be some kind of weird, like, spell thing. I don't know if maybe this is where the tattoo came from. Like, this is the origin of it in that little room. But yeah, that was supposed to be some kind of weird spell.
Well, it was either a scene that was in the script or a cutscene or something, because someone had mentioned, I want to say actually the guy who, Shanks actually said that there was supposed to be a sequence where he was carving the tattoo into Michael's wrist. At any rate, this kind of reminded me of two major rules of classic horror that you're reminded of in movies like The Blob and Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Rule number 1, don't be an old dude. And rule number 2, don't be an old dude in the middle of nowhere with a pet as your only companion.
Yeah, I feel like both of those things are what I'm going to be someday.
Did you feel like Loomis's arrival on the scene in the opening of the movie was just like unexpected Loomis, just popping out of nowhere? No, don't!
But there's a lot of unexpected Loomis. Like, Loomis just pops up in all the weird places.
This one in particular, I couldn't help but laugh when he was like, wait a minute, where did you come from? And
where did he end Part 4?
Him and Michael were laying on the ground and you thought they were dead, right? No, that was the end.
No, that's the end of 5. That's the end of the movie you just watched.
Everything's getting all muddled. The point is, clearly he didn't die. And in Part 6, they explained it away easily by him saying, well, I didn't die.
Maddie, we're morons. The end of 4 is that we made fun of it all last episode. We're like, no!
They freeze-framed on him screaming. Which, I mean, in the theatrical cut of Part 6, they ended on him screaming from a window, too, so...
Well, the theatrical cut of Part 6, it's just his screaming overlaid...
Yeah, of a house.
Staring at a pumpkin, but we'll get to that.
No! Oh, God, no! No! And in this one, he doesn't see the evil in Jamie anymore, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of like a in, then out sort of possession.
Is it just me, or was it terribly misguided to put her in a pageant knowing her extreme anxiety attacks that girl gets on a daily basis?
Yeah, but stuttering kid was there to help her through it, so it's okay. But back to the end for a second. When I was younger... When I was really into these movies, I never really thought of it as her getting possessed by the spirit of Michael. I had always thought of it of her just like having a psychotic break because all the crap she had just gone through. She
that
just
makes
lost
more sense.
it, stabbed her mom. So that's kind of where I always went with it. It wasn't until I started delving into all these documentaries where I found out like, it's the spirit of evil. Like, I didn't get that at all originally, and it made more sense to me then.
Psychotic break is better.
Yeah, much better.
Did you notice that he's not really in the shadows much anymore at all in this one? Like, you're always getting full on Michael. You even get extended shots when he's, like, walking in the background. It's no more flashes, you know?
Yeah, and they that carried on until 6, too, and I hate that because Michael is the king of being backed into. Like, he's the king of coming out of the showers. Freudian. He's the king of coming out of the shadows. Like, that to me, that was iconic Michael. Like
I'm sorry. I'm just picturing a boys' locker room, and Freddie is, like, in the locker room, like, maybe whipping someone's ass with a towel. Jason is trying to shave his mask, and then Michael's just holding the towel around his waist as he's, like, stepping out of the shower.
Nice.
And the music plays.
Yeah, but, okay, yeah, all
Another kid, dude, back off.
All mistaken words aside, Michael, like that's when I think of Michael Myers, I think of that white mask coming out of just this black void, you know, right behind his victim. When we get to Resurrection and H2O, which is gonna suck, they get back that a little bit if I remember correctly. But oh man, do we have to sift through some shit to get there.
I will say, watching the later portions of these movies, I respect Rob Zombie's vision a little bit more, because they got dumber than those two movies.
Wait, you think that Rob Zombie's movies are dumber than 5 and 6?
No, I'm saying 5 and 6 were dumber than Rob Zombie's.
Okay. I think Danielle Harris makes an interesting point. I'm going to just touch on it here, but I'll get to the reason why later. But she feels like she wouldn't have been in the Rob Zombie movies had she been in 6. But I'll touch on that again later.
I do like that Loomis's desire to even bother reasoning with people is officially out the door, and he's like, no, you're staying in here, I gotta catch Michael, locks the door, runs off.
Yeah, I mean, he sort of lost that in 2. Like, 4 and 5, he's just pulling guns on whoever is in his way.
At least in 4 and 5, he was taking the time to even say something.
Oh, and he still remotely gave a shit about children then, too. Yeah. Like, he I don't know how many times he just grabbed Jamie and shook her. Like...
I do think it's interesting, though, that maybe because he recognized that link that Michael and Jamie somehow had, that he tried to reach, like a doctor, towards a grain of humanity in Michael, even though he understood the monster more than anyone else, that there was nothing. I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah, I did too, but Jamie did find a little peace.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
For a very short period of time, she did.
Yeah.
Does it seem to you like Part 2 was the only one with a couple of competent police officers?
I was hoping you'd get to those guys. Yeah, it was so weird. And this is another example of the director just letting Alan Howarth do whatever he wanted to with the music. The music for these cops and the sound effects, like, it's all completely, like, these are sound effects lifted from cartoons. Like, I've heard them in cartoons before.
It's like one of them should have been Don Knotts.
Yeah, and the music, like, Howarth in this interview I saw, he was like, I didn't really understand it. I thought it was weird, but I made it work.
I just like, oh, looks like that psycho's running around. Guess we won't be able to get any pie from Aunt B.
Yeah. And this is probably a weird me thing, but the sort of Jersey Italian looking funny cop, you know who I mean? The one with the darker hair? It looked like to me he was wearing someone else's face. I don't know how to explain it, and I saw an older version of him, and he certainly was not wearing someone else's face. But, like, his face just didn't look real to me. It was so weird. The weirdest thing about those two cops is I should have hated every scene they were in. Like, this is a town that's been, like, plagued with Michael Myers for, 12 years, I think. I think it's been, like, a 12-year span. And these cops still managed to, like, hold it together enough to not shoot. Well, number one, I can't believe after all this, kids are still dressing like Michael Myers on Halloween. Especially after how many of them have been killed in the past for doing it. It's impressive that these cops have the ability to stop and make a joke that keeps them from shooting a child.
Well, I guess at this point, these are the only cops they can get in this town.
Yeah, they're probably reaching for the bottom of the police academy barrel.
Judging by Michael's track record, the turnover rate must be insane.
Oh, that's right. Because, not only that, but a year before he murdered every cop in town. It was like one of the first things he did.
I'd like to see a lineup of all of the actors who ever played Michael and then compare them to all the actors who ever played Dracula, because there are a lot.
Yeah, sometimes more than one per movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's really tempting to make a dramatic Loomis speech compilation. Every movie, Donald Pleasence gets at least one of them.
Yeah.
Usually
he's got
two.
some great lines in Prince of Darkness, too.
Yeah. Did you know that the crew was heavily involved on screen as extras and doing stunts?
I didn't, but I knew that they didn't have the money or time for some extras occasionally, so some of the actors actually played extras occasionally as well.
One of my favorite moments to kind of wrap this up is at the very end of the movie. They say he'll rot in prison for the rest of his day. Never mind. Never mind. Like, it's
Yep.
almost like they didn't even have time to finish the sentence.
And I love the Man in Black. Oh, yeah, we should also mention that this introduces the Man in Black as well, who is slightly semi-important in 6, but we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, I like how he used an old-timey, God, I own one of these rifles, and I can't remember what it's called, lever action rifle. I thought that was cool.
And what's funny is, like, in this one, even though he didn't play the Man in Black in part 6, or the main guy, whatever you want to call him, yeah, Shanks played the Man in Black and Michael in this one.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That makes the producer's ending of 6 even funnier, but we'll get to that in a minute.
I think they had called him about being involved in 6, but ultimately didn't cast him.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, it definitely wasn't him in 6. It was another dude.
With that being said...
Well, no, the last thing I have about this movie is I was very confused briefly at the farm party. What was it called? The Tower Farm Party?
Something like that.
So there's this random old lady just sitting in a chair in the middle of all this, like, high school kid drinking and debauchery. Like, do you think she owned the place? Was she renting it out to these kids? Might she be somebody's, like, senile grandmother?
Was she knitting?
I don't remember what she was doing, but, like, I was just wondering, like, she had to have known there were kids drinking and boning all around her. But she just sat there. It was so weird.
Well, if she was knitting, it would have been a reference to part 3, but if she wasn't knitting, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, there's a farm here in town that would, like, sort of rent itself out to fraternities and sororities to have these parties, and the dude would give him hay rides. I guess he was some, like, creepy farmer, though, and he weirded out the girls. I don't know if it still happens, but, like, I guess this is something some farmers do. They just let kids get drunk there.
I'd like to believe she was, like, a burned-out old madam from the old times when they used to rent out chicken coops.
But she would have had to be, like, 150 years old, Maddie, for that to be a thing. Okay, no, at least 80. So maybe, I guess it's possible. I don't know. I don't know. What if she was dead? What if it was just an old lady corpse? Like, not like Michael killed her, just she died of natural causes and the kids just put her there.
Well, you know, kids do some crazy things. Have you seen Children Don't Play with Dead Things?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, children shouldn't play with dead things. And that was part 5. All in all, it was an okay movie.
Yeah, it was okay. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. It was okay.
It wasn't terrible.
I was kind of happy when Tina got stabbed, then I felt guilty for being happy that she died.
Aww.
That being said, I was not very sad for most of the people dying in part 6.
You're going to hate me later when I tell you who I was sad for their death, but...
Probably. Anyway. So strap in, guys. I have a whole lot to say about this movie that I don't really... Like, I used to love this movie. I followed it. Like, I remember when, like, there was this rumor that Quentin Tarantino was going to produce it, and somebody who's worked with Tarantino before was going to direct it. It was going to be so good, and it was going to be called Halloween 666, The Curse of Michael Myers, or something like that. And I guess there are even... There's some trailers out there that I can't remember if they used that name. It went through a couple different names. It never happened. They settled with Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, partially because of how terrible it was to work on the movie. Apparently, like, that it's part of an inside joke.
Well, even the movie itself doesn't say Halloween 6. It just says Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers.
Curse of Michael Myers, yeah.
Which is confusing when you're trying to put them in order.
And it's hard to find on IMDb sometimes, too. So, yeah, I guess a lot of the cast sort of disavowed from this. Nobody has a whole lot of good things to say about it.
I wonder why.
Yeah, a lot of Loomis's stuff was actually cut out, which is doubly sad because this was his last film, I think. He died in between wrap and reshoots. I want to say February he died of that year, 95. I can't remember. This was actually Paul Rudd's first movie, too. He did this before Clueless. So we open this fine film on Jamie Lloyd giving birth to what I assume is her Uncle Michael's baby.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. We then get a quick narration about the previous films by Paul Rudd and the new mythos, the whole demon thorn thing and all that stuff.
Can we talk about the voice he used real quick throughout this whole movie?
It's Paul Rudd's voice.
It sounds like Paul Rudd's talking when he's making a bad joke. He does this certain cadence. The whole voice he does is like when he's just joking. It's like he might as well be saying slapping the bass, slapping the Michael.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because he played that entire part like that and he's stuck with it. If you look at his facial expressions throughout this movie, like there's a part where like Michael's coming at him and he does this weird smile, twitch, head cock that was like such a weird, like you can tell that he's bringing like the trauma he dealt with as child Tommy, into this, and he's just reacting in the weirdest ways, and he's got this sort of like cynical obsession going on. I thought they played him I thought that Paul Rudd played him so well.
Okay, well, can you at least admit that his voice was not the right one for the narration if they were going to do that stupid scene? I mean, don't you think maybe Donald Pleasence would have been better?
No, because Tommy was the one with all the information at that point. Donald Pleasence, Loomis didn't know any of that stuff.
They have to have a good voice for it. He sounded awful.
I thought it was good. That's one of the few good things in this movie.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, Paul Rudd plays Tommy. We've established that. Jamie had Uncle Mikey's baby, and it's being anointed in this creepy hospital basement by a bunch of dudes in terrible robes. I get what they were going for. I understand that it was supposed to match the sort of triangle line on the demon thorn thing, but they look so stupid. The robes reminded me of like 50s alien formal wear. Like it's like what aliens would wear when they were going to like a conference about war. So she has this kid, and luckily a nurse has a change of heart and helps her escape. Then this nurse gets impaled on a spike sticking out of the wall, which I can't figure out why there's a spike sticking out of the wall in this hospital basement. I feel like this is something someone should have taken care of long before Michael had a chance to throw a nurse into it.
Well, clearly they haven't had an OSHA inspection for a while.
Yeah, and I mean, see, this is another problem with me now. Like, I took a 10-hour OSHA workshop, so now I see the danger in everything. It's completely ruined me. My card is in the mail, by the way. That's how I am at work now, but I digress.
Your fire marshal bill?
Kind of, yeah. So did the Thorn Cult just kind of let Myers meander around in the basement for 10 years when he wasn't impregnating his cousins? Because that seems awfully dangerous. Like, do you think Michael just... Because it showed him just wandering around in the opening of the movie. Like, do you think he was just wandering around down there for 10 years? I feel like he had to have murdered a bunch of cultists.
Well, if you look at the, producer, director's cut or whatever, maybe they kept him in a circle of stones.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to get to that.
What did you think of the theme?
I hate it.
For me, it felt like they were saying, it's the 90s. Screw you, man. Here's some guitar. They might as well be saying Bush or something.
In fact, I'm going to skip ahead because I have a short list of things that makes this movie way too 90s. The Extreme soundtrack is number one. This is the only one. I don't even think I hate Resurrection and H2O. I've got to go back and watch them again, but I'm not sure. But who decided on that crappy, edgy 90s guitar? Wow, 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 wow. Actually, when I was writing, when I was messing around with the theme that I hope you all, listeners, I hope you liked, I covered that. That's me. Quick plug. I was messing around with it, and I actually accidentally clicked on sort of a guitar sound in one of my sample libraries, and it started playing, and I had this terrible Episode 6 flashback and nearly smashed all my stuff. But I pulled back and calmed down.
Michael comes into your room and he just stabs your synthesizer, looks at you, tilts his head, and then walks out.
Right. So, okay, to continue my list, there is a cringy Beavis and Butthead impersonation. When Kara's brother, whose name I don't even know and I don't even care to know because that character was irritating, when he looks at one of Little Danny's, I haven't gotten to Little Danny yet, but we'll talk about him in a minute. Looks at one of Little Danny's drawings, he does it in a Butthead voice. He's like, oh, I think it's cool. Oh, it was so cringy and terrible. I'm a little embarrassed that I just did it. There's...
Yeah, cool.
Oh, God. There's also a Howard Stern type shock jock, which was actually Howard Stern was offered the part but didn't take it.
Even when they killed that sexist radio shock jock, I felt it was too soon. I was really hoping he was going to go inside the house and yuck it up first before he got a really grisly, awful death.
I'm kind of glad, I'm glad he died when he did, because I couldn't deal with any more of that stupid shock jock humor. Like, Howard Stern's the only one who's ever been able to do it right.
So I don't know. I wanted them to play around with that. I felt like there was no point in bringing them in if they weren't going to.
Yeah. So there were CIA conspiracy theories, which was another very 90s thing, with CIA, because this is pre-9/11, before everything became NSA and Homeland Security. And there is a crappy Creed-sounding band in there. In fact, there's a couple of very 90s sort of post-grunge songs in there, and it was terrible. So that's my list of why this movie's too 90s.
This movie made... oh goodness, what was that? Disturbing Behavior. It made Disturbing Behavior look like, in comparison, way more fashion forward.
Oh, for sure. Like poor Paul Rudd's like little green shirts tucked into his sort of high waist pants. I hate to make fun of other people's clothes, but it was pretty... Okay. I know they were going for militant, but it just looked bad.
So you've been freaking out this whole series about how Donald Pleasence says Samhain or Samhain, however you want to say it, right? But Paul Rudd says it like Salmon.
It's Samhain.
He said Salmon.
Pretty sure he said Samhain.
He said Salmon.
I'll have to listen to it again, but I thought he said it right. I feel like I'd be bitching right now if he didn't.
He did not. Okay. I was like, oh man, this is going to ruin Corey's day.
Well, I missed it. It got past me. I think I'm just tired of bitching about pronunciation. I've been doing it for weeks on end.
At one point, I just thought, God, this movie is fan fiction.
Kind of, yeah. Jamie escapes. Eventually, Michael catches up to her and kills her, but not before she hides the baby in a bus station bathroom. This kind of thing seems to happen a lot, like, in real life, so it's a good thing she was the only one to hide a baby in there that day, or we'd have this zany case of mistaken identity movie and would totally throw things off.
That was a brutal death. Like, that character didn't deserve to go out that way.
I liked the way she died. After a brief car chase, after she hides the baby, Michael kills her in a barn. She gets thrown on some kind of harvesting machine. Michael turns it on, and it just cuts her insides up. I thought that was cool. And then he takes some me time to write his symbol on some hay with fire. I don't know.
His mark, right?
Yeah, his mark.
When did he suddenly have a mark?
Beginning of 5. When the old man cast the spell.
But Donald Pleasence already knew it was his mark, so...
Yeah, who knows? Man, that was such a shitty way for Jamie to go out there. Danielle Harris carried, like I said, Danielle carried 4 and 5. And recasting her, then killing her off with any sort of fight just trashes her character. Like, just kills 2 movies worth of, like, a great character like that. I hate that so much.
Well, Tommy was 3 different characters in Friday the 13th.
Yeah, but that didn't matter as much to me.
Okay, fair enough.
Corey Feldman didn't have to be Tommy for that role to work, I don't think. I think they could have found another Corey Feldman is not a great actor, so I think they could have found somebody better. They could have found somebody equal, and it would have been fine.
Wait a minute, the star of your favorite movie in history is not a great actor?
I was always more on the Corey Haim side of things.
Wow.
Thank you. The second dude who played Tommy was definitely just a throwaway. Mm-hmm. And then they finally got it right with the Tommy and 6. But I digress. So Danielle Harris kind of really got screwed over pretty bad for this role. She found out about it through a release that went out to all of her agents. They didn't even call her, even though she was 17 and they wanted a 17-year-old. She didn't get this call because she was 17 and they wanted an 18-year-old because they would be able to work them harder and longer and she wouldn't have to go to school. So the only way she could play this part was to get emancipated. So she spent like thousands of dollars, like a couple grand to do this. And then the production company wouldn't give her the money to even cover doing all that. She was just going to get scale, which I think she had said was like $800 a day or something like that back then. I don't remember. But then she read the script and it was like, I boned my uncle? Yeah, I'm out. That's kind of how she was like sort of unceremoniously drummed out of that. But she also says in the same interview that had she been the one to die in 6, Rob Zombie may not have been as interested in casting her in 1 and 2. You know what I mean? And that would have definitely, like, her Scream Queen trajectory went exactly the way it should have, I think. And I think if she would have been in 6, that might have messed things up a bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't help that 6 was a terrible movie.
So before all this, we meet Danny and Kara. Danny hears voices telling him to kill people, and his mom sees this as a nightmare rather than a warning sign. She's not a good parent. And he also draws pictures of the thorn tattoo, as well as pictures of bloody family members. Loomis is retired and living in the middle of nowhere. He seems happy, but that's obviously not going to last. He died shortly after filming this. Rest in peace, Donald Pleasence.
I love, though, that his explanation in this, when they're talking about him, is, well, I didn't die.
Yeah. So the doctor, who I guess must be the new head doctor at the hospital, wants Loomis to come back and work. But Loomis is totally okay staying and writing his book until he hears a voice on the radio. Same shock jock radio show. This dude's on 24/7, asking for his help. It's Jamie from the bus station. So he's back. He's ready to go. He's Loomis again. Back in Haddonfield, Halloween is now outlawed, but a group of college students are staging a Halloween party protest to bring it back. They invite said shock jock to cover it on his radio station, and I'm sure he's going to take it very seriously. Kara recently moved back in with her family, and she's in college. The father's definitely an abusive dude, and the mom is definitely the kind of lady that turns a blind eye. I guess there was another cutscene from the producer's edition that made it seem like there's a chance Danny is actually her father's kid. Like, he looks at some picture and, like, sexually aggressively says, "Happy Halloween, little girl," to it or something like that.
Ugh.
I don't know. They're really only there to show Danny do some more crazy stuff. I mean, it's not so crazy. The father's gross. And he slaps Kara after calling the kid a bastard, and the kid grabs a knife and holds it to his grandma's stomach. That's another thing. There's a hesitation before he calls the kid a bastard. A lot of people speculate that hesitation, along with the photograph in the dude's office, is kind of a molestation sort of reference. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then everybody goes to school. Also, they're living in the old Meyer house.
Yeah, of course. I do love that Michael is a local celebrity now.
It's about time.
Yeah, they're not afraid of him anymore. They almost glorify that they had this maniacal serial killer.
Yeah, I guess I guess it's not surprising it took that long, because we had the Kill for Thrill murderers. You ever hear about them?
No.
They were semi-famous serial killers in the 70s or 80s or something like that, but they dumped bodies in my town. They dumped them in a state park up the way. But now that I think about it, nobody but me ever talks about that. So maybe people just don't want to remember that horrible, dark shit.
Well, I do have a question, actually, for Satan. What made you decide to act in this movie?
What part did I play?
Well, you did that voice at the end. You remember that, right?
I mean, that was a long time ago. Which voice?
Your voice.
What voice?
When you were talking to Danny, the voice, your actual voice, you were talking. Why were you in this movie?
Oh, I don't think that was Satan.
Are you sure? Because it sounded exactly like Jim.
Might have been Jim. I'm not. He's not.
It's all right. I'm here. Don't you worry. It wasn't me either. I think that was Dr. Wynn using some sort of magic.
Yeah, I agree with him. I think it was some sort of weird Dr. Wynn thing as the Man in Black.
Huh. Well, talk about defamation of character. Am I right, Satan?
I've had worse.
So we get some footage of Tommy being creepy and doing detective work. He finds the bus station, ends up with the baby, takes the baby back to the hospital and yells a lot, and then meets Loomis randomly right before he's chased out by security guards. But they have time to catch up a little and decide to meet later that night at the not at all murder-filled Halloween protest party.
They were really reaching to just push this story along.
Yeah. I mean, Loomis is a doctor. He's in a hospital. He had just met with Wynn. Like, I get it. It works. But it really wasn't. It's a chance meeting that was forced.
Well, why bring Jamie in, or why bring Danny into this story if you've got the baby? Why bring the baby into the story if you've got the kid? They're not both
I don't know.
necessary.
Well, that's the thing. Danny's not related by blood to Myers at all. And, yeah, there's no reason. He's just a red herring, essentially, the entire movie. So Loomis's next stop is to go creep out Mommy Strode by giving her the history of the house, which they all should have already known. This shit has been happening for years. And it's always surrounded that house. Somebody would have told her, like a neighbor, somebody would have been like, hey, so you're in that house where that little boy murdered his sister and all that other shit happened. That sucks for you.
I like to imagine that before Loomis retired, he would like go up and down all the streets in Haddonfield and like knock on the doors, and then someone would have to brew some coffee because they knew they were in for like a 5-minute speech from Loomis.
I think maybe if he had a little golf cart.
Yeah, that's the real reason people don't want to listen to him, because he just bothers them every damn day.
Yeah, and he's always waving guns around.
I shot him 6 times! Yes, that was 9 years ago.
All right,
No!
so Mommy Strode decides to leave, but gets an axe to the head instead. She's done.
She's annoying.
Yeah, I didn't like her. She turned her a blind eye for abuse. It's okay, she's dead. So that's what I'm saying. Like, most of these characters, I'm totally cool with them dying. Tommy accidentally smashes Danny's pumpkin, then takes him home because stranger danger obviously isn't a problem in Haddonfield.
Well, Tommy is a little weird.
Yeah. So Kara is locked out because her mom tried to survive and failed. So she goes around back and gets into the house because her mom was really bad at surviving. She sees Tommy, who's hanging out with Danny. She's obviously a little bit weirded out, and we get some more exposition, and they all go to Tommy's because let's all of a sudden believe the creepy dude. So Tommy's got this crazy murder wall, but she decides to stay when he tells her to watch her own house, which is all very, very strange. Danny sees Michael, but nobody else does, so this is all pointless, and there are babies to be fed anyways, so that's a scene. We learn more about the runes and how they relate to this thorn called Michael. One child from each tribe gets infected by the demon. They killed their family. Then all is well, and they get good crops or something. Is that what you got from that? Because it gets a little muddled.
I just got that they like to do this because they're weird.
Fair enough.
They're bad guys. They've got to have some kind of bad guy motivation. Why not possess children?
Yeah. The symbol's also a constellation that appears occasionally on Halloween night, which I guess is a good way to explain why Michael's intermittent visits are intermittent.
I just hate the idea of trying to craft sympathy for the person Michael might have been once. I just don't like that.
Yeah, that's my problem with Rob Zombie's version, too. He gives that a shot as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh. And, like, it's half the movie.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot that Tommy lives in a boarding house run by a deaf old lady. And she tells Danny about the true meaning of Halloween. It's all about dead folks coming home to warm themselves by the fireside. Apparently there are a lot of bonfires and dancing. People wear costumes to keep the evil spirits away, especially the boogeyman.
Now,
again, referencing Michael.
Was it in this one or the one before where Halloween had been banned for several years?
That's this one.
Yeah.
That's why they're having the protest party.
Okay. But they're still allowed to dance, right?
Yeah, they can still dance. This isn't Footloose.
Okay, well, now I'm envisioning Michael having that Footloose dance scene.
As you should. Then she says some creepy shit about the kids' voices and admits to babysitting Michael, which we see no sign of in the original. It's just Mike, his sister, and her boyfriend. But I guess if you want to shoehorn new stuff and retcon, fine, whatever.
Oh, this movie is the definition of retconning.
Oh, it really is.
Oh, my God.
All right, so where was I? Oh, the protest party has started. The lame DJ shows up and interviews Kara's brother and girlfriend. He sort of just hits on the girl, and she tries to talk about the anti-Halloween, trying to save Halloween thing, and it's just annoying and bad. And they find out the boyfriend lives in the Michael Myers house, so the shock jock's like, yeah, let's go. But he doesn't get a chance to because Michael murders him and hangs him in a tree. And then somewhere in there, the terrible dad dies. He gets impaled on a fuse box, and this makes me really happy.
His head explodes, doesn't it?
Yeah. Kara's brother and girlfriend end up going there to meet the DJ, but he's not there, obviously, because he's dead, but Michael's there. So long story short, there's some sex, and everybody's dead, except for Loomis, Kara, Danny, and the baby, and the cult folks. Mm-hmm. Kara sees all these dead relatives and beats up Michael a little bit. They run across the street and find out that Dr. Wynn is the man in black. And the old lady that owns the boarding house is in on it, too. And then Kara jumps out a window. I forget why, because I lost interest twice. I watched this movie twice and couldn't pay attention. And people fall out of windows a lot in these movies, so I guess it's just a thing people do in Haddonfield. They all head off to the hospital for the final act. And this is another, I assume this is another editing thing, but it gets so confusing here. It turns out the cult wants to, okay, Loomis meets up with Dr. Wynn, and he's like, why are you doing this? And Wynn says something to the effect of they want to harness the power of this baby to usher in some kind of new age. I don't know. At one point, they end up, like, I don't know. Like, I don't understand the end. This is just like Halloween 3 again. I don't understand the end game. Like, why do you want to harness the power of Michael?
Because you're evil, and that's the only answer you need. Because Michael is pure evil, and pure evil is enough of an answer in all situations, apparently.
I guess, but if you go by the lore this is created, it's the whole deal is Michael exists to kill his family as a sacrifice to keep things good for the tribe. That's this lore. So it doesn't make sense that they're just harnessing this baby because it's just going to keep Michael killing people because he didn't get to finish his family off, and everybody's going to have a bad time. I don't know. At one point, they end up in a room full of jars of fetuses or feti. It's fetuses, right?
I think it's fetuses, yeah. Fetuses,
I like feti better. I think feti's funnier.
I feel like she was staring at those fetuses, almost like comprehending something, and they never explained it.
Do you think that those are all like Jamie babies gone wrong, or do you think they let Michael sleep around as like an experiment?
Well, I was thinking Jamie babies gone wrong. I was thinking like they either tried to clone Michael multiple times, or they had Michael just banging Jamie for 12 straight years.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Like it was just poor. That would be awful. Like that's the most tragic, horrible thing in that movie. All right, so obviously like my notes get a little shorter here because I got bored. So everybody rescues everybody else. They beat up Michael a little bit more, and Tommy stabs him with a bunch of hypodermic needles, and Loomis sacrifices himself for the last time because, like I said, Loomis passed away, unfortunately, and we lost one of the greatest horror actors of our time. But I have to admit, the way in the theatrical version, watching Loomis stand there watching them drive off and then walking back into the building was such a great goodbye. Mm-hmm. And it definitely made me feel some feelings, at least until they made him scream over a picture of a pumpkin. That kind of ruined it for me.
Yeah, I don't even... Oh, because they were trying to just set it up to have the option for another movie.
Yeah. Well, the screen came from the producer's ending, the original ending that nobody liked. Like we've been saying, there's this infamous producer's cut out there. I haven't seen it, but I and apparently Maddy both watched the alternate ending. I assume you did, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of hits a lot of the same beats as the theatrical version, but it adds a little bit more ridiculous witchy stuff, like Paul Rudd wearing one of the dumb robes and saving the baby from the cult, and that's how they get over to that door that Loomis opens. So I'm just going to go through this. So Tommy saves Karen and her son from the ritual and are fleeing the basement with the baby. They're still stopped by the barred door, though instead of Loomis getting there sooner, Tommy has a minute to cast this druid rune blood spell on the floor that stops Michael in his tracks. They all get away, and Loomis still goes back in, though it doesn't actually end there like it did in the theatrical. Just before Loomis enters, the man in black finds Michael and secretly switches outfits. Loomis finds who he thinks is Michael lying on the floor and unmasks him to see Dr. Wynn. He then looks at his wrist and screams as the thorn tattoo transfers to him. And as Loomis screams, Michael walks off into the sunset of the basement dressed as the saddest little cowboy in town. The end.
This is clearly... Oh, it felt like a movie made by someone who didn't really like the Halloween franchise and wanted to make it their own. At least you could argue that Part 5 was still in slasher territory, but what is Part 6? It's not even remotely close.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's got some good kills in it, but it's just all over the place.
Which, you could say that, honestly, that seems like a lot of mid-90s horror films were like that. This kind of editing nightmares, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was a weird time. We weren't at war.
Ah, okay.
Well, no, that's like when the world's a lot more violent. I mean, granted, the world's always violent, but specifically we as a country weren't super violent during this time. It was after Desert Storm, but before 9/11. So we're in this sort of section of like shaky peace, and genre movies often suffer in those times.
Well, that makes me think that the next one's going to be incredible.
That's what I'm saying. The next one's going to be dope because the world is ending.
All right. I think it's time for us to finish this amazing fan fiction chapter. So get ready. It's going to be a wet and wild ride.
Don't say wet and wild about that. So gross.
But look at the rest of the chapter. It's clearly very wet and very wild.
Maybe we can save it for the next episode in which we'll be doing H2O and Resurrection, which is going to be great. And I'm really excited for.
It's been fun, guys, but I think I'm going to hit the road till the next party.
Okay, well, it was nice hanging out with you, Jim. Are you going to go outside, or are you just going to go to your usual space hiding in Corey's bedroom closet?
No, I was going to spend some time in the bushes outside his window tonight. It's look at the stars, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's sweet.
I'm getting used to it at this point.
So if any listeners would like to check out our blog, All October, as you probably know by now, is the blogathon. So for every day, there's at least one entry. You can check us out at hallow-holic.blogspot.com.
You can find us on Twitter at Nowhere23 or search for Hallow-Holics. We're on Podpedia as well. Search for our portal, HHA, there. And I wasn't being mean to Podpedia. I just tried that like 10 times, guys, and couldn't say it right. So,
really did.
I mean, they do make us say that, but I appreciate their exposure.
You can also, if you'd like to drop us a line, email us at hallowholics@outlook.com. Who knows, if you have any spooky stories to tell, anything to say, we might eventually feature it in a future episode.
Or any movie requests, anything. You can get at us on Twitter, email us about that, anything. We got our first email, but it was spam, so we were very sad. So come on, guys, talk to us.
We will watch anything you want.
Yes, we will. Challenge us to the worst movie you've ever seen, and I guarantee you I'll find a way to defend it.
And you know what? I'm going to throw my hat out there. If you want us to write a ridiculous crossover erotic fan fiction in 500 words or less, I'll write that too. And Corey will read it.
All right, that's really going to attract the best sort of fan. Wow, this girl on the internet said she'd read us porn. Anyway, thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.